We apologize for this brief interruption in the show. As many of you likely know, the Higher Standard podcast is officially sponsored by TRANSCEND Company. TRANSCEND has been my longtime provider for both testosterone and peptide therapies, but they offer so much more. Whether you're interested in health, wellness, or longevity, it all begins with you getting your blood work done. A lab draw will help you get the numbers and establish your baseline. You can go to transcendcompany.com/THSP. That's transcendcompany.com/THSP. Or you can click the link in the show notes on any streaming platform and on YouTube. Fill out your information, and one of the representatives will contact you to get your journey started today. Now back to the show. No one's on those good pants. This was an unfortunate acquisition of the wrong size. That being said, it's not going to take away from the fact that you were kind of being a little bitch tonight.
Why?
Okay.
You're bringing this up now?
Haroon, you want to talk about this? If we're going to do the intro to the show, we're going to do it now like this.
Right, so all the advertisers that I reached out to, this is what they're going to see right out the
That's
right
okay.
out the top.
They're going to see truth, brother.
Truth?
Haroon, I want you to opine early on the show. I want this to be out there.
All right.
Said's idea was a you wanted to have such a cliche bad intro that the gimmick was that it was a cliche bad intro
That's
to the show.
That's funny.
That's not funny, man.
I think it's hilarious, man.
It's funny later on in the show.
Yeah.
No new subscriber's going to go, oh my God, these guys are so cliche and terrible. I should listen to the next show and see if it's the same.
Yeah.
The best part is the first time he did it, he didn't do like a weird voice, and the second time he's like, "Oh shit, I should."
I've got to yuck it up a little bit, make it a little funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, that didn't work out very well for you.
No, not so
And then
much.
third attempt, keep the phone in his face.
And the other thing, I didn't want you to open this to mess up the room, man. We got expensive gear in here.
Look, the Red Bull is fine. Okay, they're as frozen as it may be. It's still enjoyable and pleasant, and it didn't get all the room.
I need to understand before we start the show.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Here we go. Go ahead,
I'm sorry, Jeff.
Say it.
Jeff.
Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah,
Shout out. He actually left us a comment on the last
Jeff's
episode.
a good dude,
He's a great dude.
but he's unfortunately the martyr here.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So-
What's the question?
How do you decide which bracelets to put on?
Oh, you don't want to go here. You're going to offend the wife.
No, I just want to know. It's a question. It's a
Okay,
valid
so-
question. I think people want to know. Sometimes there's multiple stacked, and sometimes
No. It's so I never had these options. Historically, I would typically wear on my wrist something. I feel naked if nothing's on my wrist. I could be naked walking around with something on my wrist and be totally fine. Not having something on my wrist, and I just don't know what to do with my hands.
Okay.
It's just very confusing for me. I'll be the first to admit it's weird. And it started when I was wearing suiting back in the day. My wife is impetuous. She gets into things, and she goes deep. Right now, she's deep into like crystals, sound baths, energy healing,
It's working out.
all the things I hate.
All the things you hate.
I
That's
do.
messed up.
I hate the whole thing. She knows it. I'm not.
But
you know.
she went into it expecting a certain outcome, and she's receiving some type of output from it.
Okay, I know you're trying to sound like the good guy, and I appreciate what you're doing here. But let's just focus.
Try to call a spade or what?
Yeah, she knows how I feel about it. This is not news to her. I'm not gonna get in trouble later on for talking about this on the show.
Got it.
She doesn't listen to the show anyway. But she goes knee deep into things. She doesn't buy like one pair of Travis Scotts. She buys all of them. That's just how she is.
I like
And
that.
I love her. She just
Okay.
she gets into something, she's gonna go all the way. So she has found every single possible stone bracelet known to man and knows their purpose and has a book, and she will lay out for me on another crystal the bracelets for the next day, and I just put on what she puts out there. So apparently this one's my birthstone, and this one has some ramifications in business. And she hasn't gone so far as to add extra beads on them because my wrist is massive. And yeah, so you're taking customized, which is
which
even
I like.
weirder.
That's dope.
I mean,
The one that my son made me, I really liked, but the one of the rubber bands ripped. So
yeah, that happens. And these were out too, but they're
she
still making
finds a
them
way.
again.
All right.
And
Well, shout out to the wifey.
yeah, shout out to the wife. And while we're shouting people out to start the show, just look. I know you saw a Transcend intro if you're listening or watching on YouTube, and let me tell you, we don't talk enough about them as a sponsor. And I think it's because in a lot of ways, I know that I use them, and I know that it sounds almost like bias. But I got some quantifiable results today that I shared on social media that I think the boys know where this is going. In the last 4 months, because of what I've been doing with Transcend, I went through a period of my life where I could not lose weight no matter what I did. Diet, exercise, it just wasn't working. I changed none of that. The same diet, the same exercise, everything. With the help of Transcend, in the last 4 months, I've lost 20 pounds and gained 5 pounds of muscle. And more importantly, my visceral fat went from basically 1.15 pounds to 0.12 pounds.
Well, explain to people what is visceral fat.
Your visceral fat's your fat around your organs, and it is what is a very large indicator of future health problems like heart attack, stuff like that. So that was what triggered me to want to lose the weight and get really serious about this. And I struggled with this for years, like the last 4 or 5 years. It's kind of off and on. I just couldn't get stable. And I got to tell you, you can go to the show notes. You can go to the link and get your lab work, all that stuff done. I'm not going to tell anybody that you have to do it by any stretch of the imagination. But if you're in that situation or you're questioning it because you're afraid of needles or you're afraid of doing these things, you owe it to yourself. And my sister and I had this conversation today. She's always struggled a little bit with her weight. And I'm like, look, just call them, tell them what you're struggling with, give them the opportunity. I said, I'll even pay for it. And she went to transcendcompany.com/THSP, which is the link that we have in the show notes of the bio. If you're curious, do it. It supports the show. Even if you just go and get your lab work done, you get your lab results, at least you know what your blood panel says. Even if you don't get any products, you still support the show. And hopefully you'll get healthier. I hope that all of you out there, frankly, get to experience what I've experienced. I'm elated.
My journey's starting real soon. As soon as that first shipment comes in.
It takes a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first shipment.
But it's okay. It's supposed to be I'm trying to trust the process.
Yeah, the process is a good one.
Yeah, as they say in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know anything about that.
Nope.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today we got a great episode for you. We're going to go into 12 financial terms that we think everybody should know. Understanding these terms will help you make informed decisions moving forward. And some of these financial concepts will allow you to make sure that you are financially stable in your future.
That is so much better than a scripted intro.
So good.
That was fantastic.
What I did? It was always supposed to be a gimmick if it was scripted.
No, yeah, but yeah. He poo-pooed, I poo-pooed, we all poo-pooed.
All the poo-poo.
Everybody's poo-pooing here.
Yeah.
That was fantastic. What was wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it.
You seemed really not interested in doing that before the show started.
Stop. All right, so the first one that we're going to get into, some of these may seem a little basic. We understand. But you'll understand that there's a theme to all this, okay? So the first one that we're going to get into are assets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Assets are basically what get reported on your balance sheet for things that you owe that actually have a value, not just to you and your family for sentimental reasons, but a value in the sense that other people would also want to buy them.
So let's talk about assets in the concept of reality versus bullshit.
Okay. I like it.
Saied and I both having been underwriters, I can tell you that we've seen a lot of people's balance sheet. And their balance sheet is typically their assets and their liabilities, right? And you take the assets, which are usually positive things, and their liabilities, which are usually negative things. You subtract the positive from the negative, and whatever's left is your net worth, right? We'll cover that a little bit later, but let's just start with the basic. A lot of people think things are assets that are not assets.
Like what?
So if, for example, you own intellectual property, right? You own a trademark. To you, that might be worth a lot of money. You put that on your balance sheet as an asset. Unless an accountant or an outside auditing firm says there's true intrinsic value in this intellectual property, this thing that you own that's not material or tangible.
Right.
I'm not going to give you credit for that as an asset. I could care less.
Right. If I'm applying for a loan and I say that I own 10% of the Higher Standard podcast, well, they're going to be like, what do you want me to do with that?
Show me the income statement. Show me the balance sheet. Does that have any value to it?
Right.
If it does have value and your accountant says that it does, then I'll give you some 10% of that valuation. But you can't just say everything in the world's an asset. I mean, another favorite one is people go, oh, I've got life insurance.
Yeah, there's always the life insurance policies that people put on there.
And they're like, oh, my cash surrender value is this. And that might be true. It could be whole. It could be term insurance. The differences are not really important for this particular show. But one has a cash surrender value and one does not. Just because your life insurance policy is $1 million doesn't mean I'm going to give you $1 million in asset.
So what is a cash surrender?
So basically, if you turned it in that moment in time, right then and there, how much you would get for surrendering it in cash in return, right? So you might have $1 million policy, but your cash surrender value could be $50,000, right? That would be your asset value. If you could really, truly get that out of it, that would be your value. So there's a lot of people who put my number one pet peeve, and I see this all the time. The old school real estate mortgage brokers do this. They're notorious for this. They'll put your house as an asset. They'll put your car as an asset. And even though it's an appreciating asset, which we'll get into that in a minute, they'll put the asset, the value there. They'll just put all these values there, and they'll think, oh, the underwriter will believe it. And they always put art, rugs, jewelry. They just knock out the price, a couple $100,000.
Personal property.
If I can't verify your asset, if I can't actually tell that it's a real thing that you own, and you're just throwing out bullshit,
Mm-hmm.
don't put it on your balance sheet.
Right. As an underwriter, when I get a financial package for a borrower and a list of guarantors, we always get what they believe is their stated net worth,
Mhm.
which gives you a breakdown on their balance sheet of everything that they own, from liquid assets to illiquid assets to all their liabilities, which we'll get into in a second here. But it's crazy how much it varies, the difference between the stated column versus
Mhm.
what I actually give them credit for, because we only give credit for things that we can actually verify, to your point.
Yeah. My favorite is I've got a lockbox with diamonds in it, Chris. It's got $2 million in diamonds in it. And
No,
you're
no,
like,
no. I have a wine cellar that has this much wine, and you're like,
oh, I've heard that one.
yeah, where you're like, you could drink your asset away. That's cool.
My favorite was I own a highly rare car, and it is a one-of-a-kind, unique collector item, and it is worth $1 million.
Mm.
I've had people say that. One of them owned a Tucker. You know
Yeah.
what a Tucker is?
No.
Everyone pull that up real quick for the audience. But a Tucker was a unique car. It's very classic. I think it's like 50s. But it was ahead of its time as far as innovation and technology. And that's actually real. Tucker 48. There you go.
Wow, that's actually beautiful.
Yeah. It basically has 3 headlights. The center headlight, the third is in the middle, and it actually turns as you turn the wheel.
I've never seen that
Yeah,
before.
the technology was way ahead of its time. But these things are worth $1 million.
Wow.
I have a client that owns 3 of them.
Stop it.
Yeah. Yeah, and he owns a shit ton. This client is so wealthy, this fucking guy. He's gotten so successful and so wealthy that he has a multi-million-dollar car collection. But then he's like, okay, wait a minute. I'm buying all these hyper rare cars, classic cars that aren't built anymore. He wants to find that needle in the haystack. But he's like, wait a minute. How many cars come out of a factory? Hundreds, thousands? I'm going to start buying the factory signs. There's only like 4 factories, maybe 3, maybe 1 in some cases. And they only have 1 sign on those factories. I'm going to buy those things. So you walk into his facility, and all the old school neon car signs are there. That wasn't enough. He said, you know what? I'm going to buy old gas stations and remodel them and put them in this space, because old gas stations were smaller. So there's this big warehouse, and inside the warehouse, he has old gas stations. But that wasn't enough.
I feel like big warehouse is an understatement.
Oh, it's huge. I'll explain that in a minute. That wasn't enough. He said, I'm going to stock these things with all the vintage things the gas stations had in it. So all the old oil accounts. So we spent tracking on. He's like, you know what? I'm bored with cars. He bought a tank. He got in trouble for driving the tank outside of the warehouse up and down the street, a vintage tank. He has airplanes in this thing.
Wow.
And this is a very unassuming business complex. And it costs so much to run the power in the damn thing that he rarely turns the power on in the full building with the neon and everything else turning on. Because he said he's like, I don't want to tell you how much, but it's thousands of dollars an hour just to power it. Yeah.
Sounds like a future remote recording that we need to do.
He won't let very many people in the space because it's not a public collection.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason he let us in the space, frankly, is because we took a lien on the car for a loan for him. And I mean, he has a Mercedes 300 SL, Gullwing, original, all OEM, 1955, I want to say. He has some hyper rare vehicles in space. It's incredible.
So just to break this down quickly, one segment about the assets that we want to get into.
Cutting me off. And going
Sorry.
Right
There are liquid assets and there are illiquid assets. All that means is the asset itself, how quickly can you turn it into cash, right? The quicker you can turn it into a cash makes it more liquid, right? So therefore, cash is actually a very liquid asset, right? You got stocks, bonds, things that you could sell off immediately and they could turn into cash.
Mm-hmm.
Something that would be viewed as illiquid, right, would be your house or an investment property, right? It's not as liquid. It would take, right? Escrow in and of itself might take 30 days unless you get some type of like cash offer, right? So those are the different variations.
I look at the difference as friction, right? If you could sell something relatively quickly and it's somewhat frictionless, that's a liquid asset, right? If it takes time and there's some challenges in the way that's going to take you some time to move something along, there's some things that may be contingent, like finding a buyer might be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
That is typically an illiquid asset, right? The friction in between. If you're selling your car, generally not a liquid asset, right? It's an illiquid asset because you're going to find a buyer, place it for sale. There's a process involved in it. Which, by the way, I think this is a good opportunity to talk about 2 different types of assets. There's appreciating assets and depreciating assets.
There you go.
Cars are typically viewed as a terrible investment, and there are some rare exceptions. Don't be that guy in my DMs. I understand that there's hyper cars, exotic cars, rare cars, all those things. But generally speaking, cars are depreciating assets. They go down in time. The more you use them, the more worn they are. Homes, ironically, the more you use them and the more worn they are, don't necessarily go down in value. Sometimes they go up.
Even though you are given a depreciation expense.
Yeah, you are given depreciation expense for the improvements, the building on the actual land.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get it's an interesting thing for tax purposes. It's really political, but that's an appreciating asset. It tends to go up in time. So smart buyers will typically tell you, don't buy depreciating assets, because what you're doing is you're taking your $100,000 that you used to buy this depreciating asset, and you're knowing going into it that it's going down over time. So you're actually losing money. They say buy appreciating assets, where you put $100,000 in something and it's going up over time.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to look at that as illogical. There are certain costs of living in the world that you just have to accept. The price of playing the game. Having a vehicle in some places that are widespread, it's part of the game. I mean, you probably get away in New York and some other places not having one, especially with Uber now and stuff like that. But generally speaking, there are certain opportunity costs of living life that you have to go into. If you have to micromanage the assets you're buying because you can't afford a depreciating asset, I would say you're probably not making enough money.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And something else to note, depending on the type of loan that you're getting or the different institution that you might be applying for a loan at, they might look at some of these things differently. So even though, your marketable securities, right, your stocks, your bonds, your portfolio, right, could be viewed as a liquid asset, as an underwriter, I take that and I always account for a potential, bear market, or, the stocks eventually could possibly come down. So I discount the value that it's at, right? I know that some departments look at it differently, and they give you credit for what's stated on the actual statements.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next up on our list are liabilities, right? So if assets are things that you own, liabilities are things that you owe.
Or as some people in the real estate pundit world, they like to say that liabilities are things that own you.
There you go. Yeah.
Which in some way, tongue-in-cheek as it may be, is actually true. Haroon, if you were here, would say that I am a liability for him. Because I own you. Nothing, Haroon?
I was trying to think of something to say.
Yeah, when I go witty financial humor, it takes a little left, and I understand.
Yeah.
So liabilities are not necessarily quite what we all think they are. I like to tell people, go pull your credit report. Those are all liabilities.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Anything that shows up on your credit report is actually a liability. And it's funny, some of your assets could have liabilities attached to them. So your home, which is an asset, could have a mortgage on it, which is the liability.
And it generally does. But this arbitrage of asset and liability is actually how the rich get wealthy. And it's a very commonly over-stigmatized thing. There's lots of people who have this rhetoric. And again, we said this in previous shows, religion, fitness, health, nutrition, and finance, building wealth, these are very, really prideful things. And people get so into just their belief system. They get ingratiated. They get obstinate, and they just believe what they believe, and nothing else matters. It becomes gospel, right?
Yep.
I get that. But for most of the world, you're going to build value over time buying an appreciating asset like a home while having a mortgage on it. That's a liability. And as you pay the liability down over time, and as that property appreciates over time, you're widening the gap between the value at any moment and what you owe on the liability side. But the liability has benefits to you. In some cases, again, like homes, you can write off the interest in that liability. So as you're making payments every single month, you get a tax write-off of the interest that you're paying at the end of the year. You're still paying the money every single month, and I think that's a big disconnect. Social media would love to tell you that, oh, tax write-off, you can get a car. Good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not the way it works. You either pay the government in the form of taxes, or you use that money and spend it on something else. This is one of those things where you actually get a discount against your tax liability at the end of the year because you're paying this interest and you can write that off.
Right. So to piggyback off what you just said, there's a lot of people out there that have different messaging, right? I actually had a listener reach out to me. Shout out to Zach from Minneapolis.
Zach.
Right? Yeah.
Why people reach out to you, not me? Am I unapproachable?
I don't know. He was actually really appreciative that I got back to him. Really, really nice guy.
He doesn't know that you're not a celebrity, right?
What? No, I'm not. I made sure he was very clear that I'm definitely not a celebrity. Yeah. But
your assistant told him that.
This will be a future segment on the show. He wanted us to actually get into some key differences where we differ from the Ramsey approach.
Lots.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And now I know we've gone pretty hard in the paint against them. There have been a few instances where we have agreed on some things. There's some things you just can't deny, but we'll save that for that episode. But
It's not necessarily his approach to finance as much as the non-disclosure, and in my mind, the material representation of misrepresentation, frankly, of what it is that he's really targeting from an
Yes.
audience base.
exactly. But
And I hate it when people bring religion into the conversation.
yes, I mean, so do I. And but one of the key things that this isn't a spoiler for the future episode. We've said this time and time again. You know, he's one of those people that he thinks all debt is bad. Have no debt. You should own your home outright.
Yeah.
Like so I agree. That is a nice goal to have. But to Chris's point earlier, this liability function of like your balance sheet, right? The loans that you have, that's the tool that the rich use to become wealthy. So if
Yeah.
you really aspire to grow, maybe he thinks like his messaging for the masses is just live debt free so you don't have to worry about it. But like you're also writing off everyone's potential to grow into like the next status.
Well, he's also preaching to a narrow subset of America that he knows will be lifelong customers of his, because that methodology is the longest possible path towards economic freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's going, okay, what's the longest path to get there so these people will be my customers longer? This. And if you talk to people who are loyal Dave Ramsey like listeners,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a religion. It's like a cult. Like they are knee deep in their perception of money and how to use it. And I've always found it weird. Like we don't get a lot of people calling in or wanting to call into the show and be like, "Hey, man."
Even though people have asked us to get a phone.
And look, I'm happy to. We have it set up. I'm happy to do that. But here's the thing: is at some point, like you can't fangirl out when you call and talk about bad economic decisions. You know, it's like the sadistic thing where he's like, "My God, man, you spent how much money? That's insane.
Yeah.
Are you hearing this, America?
Yeah.
That's insane. Why are you telling me you spent $100,000 on squirrels?
Yeah, it's like
I mean, he does weird stuff.
it's like that Elliot guy where he makes people come on stage and take their shirt off and just ripping them for.
Oh, Andy Elliott,
Yeah,
yeah.
that guy. It's the same. It's like no difference. Like, oh, hold on. Well, like, what are we teaching here? But
I'm not going to
and
talk
look-
trash on Andy Elliott, but I'm going to say this: like, he just looks not normal to me.
like he doesn't look like someone I can trust.
He-
but-
he does not. Like,
but-
I don't mean that in a malicious way. I just mean like, I know his persona and like he's a hyper salesperson and he focuses on car sales and stuff, and there's courses and stuff that he teaches. But
Yeah,
and it's hard because I'm trying my best not to judge people unless I
That
sit
can't
across
be-
the table from them.
that can't be your North Star though.
It's hard for me to see, like, if you're telling, I've never met anybody who that was like their aspiration,
Mhm.
but it's hard for me to see that there's really successful people that can attribute their success to him.
But yeah, so back to that point on Ramsey, it's if you live debt free, have no credit cards, and don't buy a home until I guess you could buy it free and clear. Okay. Yeah, okay, that advice works 100% of the time. There's no holes in it. But here's the thing: nobody can do that. Most of America can't do that, right? It'd be like me telling you, oh, you want to live a healthy life? Just have chicken breasts and broccoli the rest of your life.
I did it for years.
Yeah. How happy were you?
Fun fact: 40% of America owns their home outright in cash.
Yeah.
Discuss amongst yourselves.
Yeah, I know exactly.
You just said a lot of Americans
No,
can't do that.
no, 40% of people who own homes,
Own it outright in cash.
yeah, own
Yeah.
outright in cash.
Okay, that's
and
right.
not 40% of America. Get
Oh,
it right, though.
Wow.
Get the statistic right, my
Don't
friend.
you wag that finger at me.
Next up on our list.
No. There's a type of liability I want to discuss.
Oh,
a
let's go.
unique type of liability.
Okay.
For those of you out there in the business world, or frankly not, you may hear the expression contingent liability. And people go, well, what the shit is that? It's literally a liability that only happens if something else were to occur or would not occur.
Like what?
So, for example, a very common thing in the multifamily or apartment buying space, or just commercial real estate in general, is a non-recourse loan. If Saied gets a loan on an apartment building, and he's in non-recourse because the loan is strong enough on its own where he doesn't have to provide a personal guarantee.
I don't think people even understand that that's an option.
Don't worry, it's not important for the call, for the reference here. You could have a liability trigger if you commit fraud, misrepresentation, or deceit. If you do, all of a sudden you're personally back on the hook. So, in one instance, Saied can get this loan, and Saied is not personally liable if it ever goes bad, right? It's non-recourse, meaning not recourse to you.
Meaning that the lender, if anything does go bad, they'll just go after the property.
And
They
take
won't-
that, and they won't go after you.
they
They
won't go
won't
after
seek
you.
any financial
Yeah.
ramifications from you, unless you commit fraud, misrepresentation, or deceit. Those are known as bad boy carve-outs in the industry. But that's contingent. If you don't do those three things, you don't have a liability personally. Your company that you bought it through, your LLC may, but you, Saied Omar, does not have a liability. That is a contingent liability. It's contingent upon the happening of fraud, misrepresentation, or deceit.
Right.
you actually have to disclose those as a liability for tax purposes, for loan application purposes. Because guess what? What happened during the Great Financial Crisis, during the Great Recession, was that they were looking at a lot of these people who had kind of financial downfall. They went through bankruptcies. And they recognized a common pattern in practice was that these people had a tremendous amount of contingent liabilities that someone who made the credit decision didn't take into effect. So if you're worth $100 million, Said, but you have $200 million in contingent liability, if half of that happens, you're worth zero.
Yeah.
So now underwriters and banks and people who are looking to give you some type of credit or a loan of some type will typically look to your contingent liabilities as an important factor in making a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of goes hand in hand with what we've said on the show for the greater portion of the last year. Credit quality since the great financial crisis has gone up significantly, which makes me feel a lot more confident that something like that is a lot harder or probably less likely to happen.
I certainly believe that. There are a lot of people out there who don't. I think that we're in a wait and see holding pattern right now. What's interesting is there's a lot of rhetoric around federal regulators at the moment. There's actually a Supreme Court case that just came down. It's more related to the FTC. I think it's related to the FTC. I have to double check. But I'm supposed to attend a legal briefing on this where it significantly limits the teeth the regulators have and their ability to put any type of regulated industry into jeopardy. So I don't know if it just applies to their ability for judicial or financial constraints, but certainly it's going to limit the ability for regulators that are federal, at least, to impact institutions that they regulate. And this could be banks, this could be businesses, it could be a number of different things. It's brand new law. It just came down a couple days ago, and I'm trying to figure out how this is going to impact a lot of the regulated institutions out there, including us, banks.
All right. So next up on this list, not a shocker, is net worth, right? So we talked about assets. We talked about liabilities. What is net worth? Basically taking your assets and subtracting the liabilities to figure out what your overall net worth, where is it at?
By far and away, the most bullshit, overrated term you will ever hear about is net worth.
Yeah.
And I blame Forbes for this, but your net worth means absolutely nothing. There is a rare upper echelon subset of people where there might be some semantics tied over it. But for example, the people who are worth the most money in the world, unless you're Bezos, Elon Musk, you have to apply to be on some of these lists. And people will literally apply and submit financial statements to be on this list, and they'll declare their liabilities and their assets, and they'll try to make this list because they want to be known for having this significant net worth. Right? But net worth is bullshit. It comes down to how much money you make. And you'll find a really interesting phenomenon typically takes place as you get higher and higher net worth. It becomes less about your monthly or yearly income, and it becomes more about a lot of one-time events.
What do you mean?
So if you're Elon Musk, you just got a multi-billion-dollar payday package.
Okay.
Right? Because your shareholders set a target for you to hit. They thought it was unattainable. Well, he hit it and knocked it out of the park, and it was a ridiculous package. It was 50-something billion or something like that, or some crazy number. But they never expected him to get that, so they approved it. He wound up getting a lot less than that, but he still got in the billions. But the majority of his income, his net worth, came from that large payday or his stock. But that stock valuation going up can change dramatically. But when he sells that stock, it's a one-time event. That's where you'll find that a lot of, when you get to this upper echelon of net worth, a lot of your income is not really cash flow. It's coming consistently. It's coming from these significant one-time events, or you liquidating large assets you've held.
Right.
Very few people in the world will ever build a top-tier net worth without buying assets that appreciate.
Right.
And chiefly among them are companies that they own.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So you're Elon Musk, you own Tesla.
Yeah, you own the stock in Tesla.
Yeah. A very rare anomaly, which is kind of pivoted to a company in and of itself, is Berkshire Hathaway. Charlie Munger, may rest in peace, and Warren Buffett, they bought other people's companies and built their net worth. Generally speaking, most people on the billionaires list own their own companies or legacy children of people who own companies, and that's how they have their net worth, which is the number one reason why I tell people starting your own business and believing in it and being able to work hard in it and being passionate about it is in my mind, it is the holy grail of building wealth over time, so long as you can actually do it, and most companies fail.
Right. So this figure or this number that we talk about, like your net worth, yes, You hear about it, it is a bullshit number. You shouldn't care about it. You should be worried about your cash flow, right? Because you could be someone that makes 6 figures, even 7 figures, and you could have a negative net worth just because you don't manage your money properly, right? So having a good net worth should be a cross check to how much you're making annually. That's the only reference that it should really have. Are you managing your money properly, and is this steadily growing?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, good. If not, just a net worth number in and of itself doesn't
It means
mean
very little without context.
yeah, without context. Exactly. Next up on this list is a term that gets thrown around a lot is yield.
Yeah. I have a simple way of looking at this, and I know this is going to be somewhat contrarian.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I see yield or return, I just say percent. What percent are you going to get back for what you put in?
Mm-hmm.
That's effectively your yield, right? So if you have an annual percentage yield, an APY, that's how much you're going to get after you put your money in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not to be confused with APR. The difference between the two is one takes into account all the money you're putting in and your expenses, and one does not. So your annual percentage rate is your yield that you're getting over time, but your APY is your yield on money you've invested, including your fees and your costs.
Right. So it's how much money have you earned on the investment that you made?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's just how much do they consider your investment with the fees and costs that incurred in yield,
Mm-hmm.
or do they consider that in just without fees and costs and just return?
Right. Exactly. So if, for instance, if you were to buy a bond, which we'll get into here in a second, for $1,000, and in that year that you've owned that bond for $1,000, you get $50 back,
Mhm.
right? The yield that you get, you take that $50, you divide it by your initial investment of $1,000, and you get 0.05, which is 5%. So your yield is 5%, right? Why it's important to understand this is you compare yields across other investments to see, is this worth it for me or is this worth it for me? And you can decide for yourself which is better for you and your money. And you calculate risk associated with that.
For our fitness friends out there, if you gain a percent of body fat, you know that's a lot of fat.
Yeah, exactly.
You think of yield as the same way.
Mm.
Okay. The bigger you are, the bigger your body fat number is when you gain 1%.
You saw that post I made today?
No, you made a post?
Yeah. Oh, what do you mean?
Oh, that's right. That's after you ignored the one where I tagged you about my own weight loss.
You want me to post about your weight loss?
Yes.
Get the fuck out of here.
It's your sponsor on this show.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's true. But I made that post specifically for
Haroon, don't think you're off the hot seat on this one either, bro.
I ignored it.
yeah. Just no fucks. I made that.
It was about Chris. It had
I
nothing.
made
It was about our sponsor. I was just using myself as the
Hold on,
marquee.
I still have 24 hours to repost, bro. I'm trying to give him more
I don't
time.
want you now. If you repost, it's
not the same?
legitimate. Yeah.
But I made that post. Shout out to Sabrina. She was like, I'm not happy that you're coming after gyms, canceling gym memberships.
She did, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, and when I posted it, she messaged me back because I tagged her in it, and she's like, I'm taking it that I wasn't the only one. I was like, I wasn't coming after you, but I want you to know that I respect you in what you do. But I was just talking about having to make some minor adjustments if you're going through it. That's it. It was just a reference.
I made it.
I
clear.
love the
made
gym
it clear
community.
that it was you who said that, not me.
I do love the gym community, but I will come back and say I like the home gym.
I do too, and I've been using the home gym in the mornings a lot recently.
Mhm.
There's something just electric about a gym that's full, but not too full. I went today. It was very weird.
Full, not too full.
Yeah, because you don't want to be full enough where you have to wait for a machine, but you want to be full enough to where there's a lot of people working out
Like
at the
you
same
want-
cadence as you are.
You want it to be full to where like your hair looks full, but not too full where you know it's a hair transplant. Is that what you're saying?
I know you're trying to highlight that I've had a hair transplant. Look, I'm very open about this.
I know you are. That's why I brought it up. If you weren't open, I wouldn't have brought it up.
Yes, you would have.
I'm not a
Yes,
villain.
you are a villain.
I'm not a villain.
You've literally that's definite. Haroon?
You can't use him as a piggy.
How's the ice bath?
Yeah.
Oh, they sent me so Ice Barrel finally shipped the chiller for the ice barrel for the ice bath. I have the Ice Barrel 500, which is like the bigger one that is in my garage and it's stand up or sit up thing.
Bigger, huh?
Yeah, bigger.
Bigger.
Daddy needs a big space. You know what I mean? And so there are people who are just in love with the idea of freezing their ass off, and they're like, "Oh, bro, my cold plunge is 40 degrees, man." And then you're like, "Dude, you get 98% of the benefits." And Will, the CEO of Icebarrel and I were having this conversation. You get 98% of the benefits of cold plunging from 50 to 55 degrees, right? And you only need 11 minutes a week. So there's people who are out there like, oh, my bro, I'm in the cold plunge for 10 minutes, 42 degrees, woo! You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, just relax.
Like, why?
Not gonna lie, sometimes just having a cold shower does it for me. Like
That if depending on the temperature, that could be all you need.
yeah.
I will say this. People are going to think I'm crazy. A cold shower to me is harder.
Really?
I don't know. The cold, because you can move. Like, you can get out. In a cold plunge, you get in. If you stay still, right, and the water's moving around you, it's going to get rid of this, like, layer of insulation and heat around you. It's going to feel colder. But if you get in, you sit in there. Once you're in, you're like, fuck it, I'm already here. I can't move without getting...
So what's the longest you've done when you sat in?
Oh, I've done a commercial cold plunge for probably not that long, probably like 6 minutes.
Are you practicing breathing techniques to not have to think about how cold it is? Or like what's going through your mind during this process to overcome? Because obviously you can't deny the fact that you're dealing with this stress right now.
Yeah, but I've found like you can't take your mind off it either. Like for me, like it's just cold. There's no way around that.
So you're just thinking, wow, this is cold. Wow, this is cold.
What I generally tell myself is, so first of all, I do cardio in the morning first, and then I do the cold plunge immediately afterward. And the reason why is I don't want to do the cold plunging after I lift weights because you're then going to blunt some of the gains from weightlifting. Gains. But so for me, I tell myself, like, look, I can't take Advil because I had an allergic reaction to it. So I can't take anything that's really good for inflammation. This makes my body feel better, like physiologically feel better because it reduces some of the inflammation that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I just think like I got to get through this. The benefits are there. And I'm only really aiming for 1 to 2 minutes a time, right? If I can get 2 minutes in and I can do that 6 days a week, that's all I need. And that's all. And I'm not really like, I'm not going to die on like 11 minutes a week. I'm just trying to do it to feel better. But I will say this, you get out of a cold plunge, there is something euphoric about it. And it does last the morning. You feel good.
It's a rush of dopamine, right?
I honestly, I don't really fully understand the science. I can just tell you that and I don't post this shit like on social media. I just post because Icebarrel hooked me up and I want to be.
Do you think Will would ever want to come on the show?
He gave me one of the first 40 because we had a conversation about, because he had some delays, and apparently the delays were the cold plunge were interesting. He had some interesting build stuff there too. I don't know how much that people care at listen, but I asked him, like, why doesn't your chiller, which you had internet, I mean, it's really cool, high technology chiller. I highly recommend it. It's expensive though. I said, why does your chiller not have like ozone? He's like, because ozone just makes the water look cleaner. It doesn't make it actually any cleaner. He's like, I'd rather water look dirty when it is dirty, so you know to change it.
Oh,
right.
So you don't just brush it off.
But he's got really interesting stuff. Like, he has some technology built into this, which I haven't seen anybody else do, which is kind of cool. And we talked about it. Like, he can have, so you have a clock set to it. It doesn't have to run continuously throughout the day. So it knows what your temperature currently is, and it'll run only when it needs to get to the temperature when you want to use it.
Mm.
And it's super highly efficient, and it's a tiny little
kind of like
machine.
My Nest thermostat. Love my Nest.
It's a lot like your Nest, and it works a lot like that. There's a couple other competitors out there that have similar products on the market, but his has been fantastic. But it was delayed because the FTC, because it has a Wi-Fi component, he had to go through this whole process of delayed delivery of these things for 6 months.
That's the kind of stuff that I want to get into with him. Like, I mean, having to fight through all that red tape and kind of like what we did with the founders of Fridays, right? Like they jumped through a lot of hurdles. Now that episode, we spent more time probably talking about the actual science behind it and some of the patient stuff.
I can ask
the testimonials, but I feel like getting into that kind of stuff is like, I think helps people realize, like, look, people don't just end up where they are. They have to go through a lot to get there.
Oh yeah, this started off as like a side business for him.
Yeah.
It was literally just selling barrels, like literally plastic barrels, and then he made them his own. They were insulated. I mean,
dope.
It got really cool.
Okay, so next on this list, just to kind of get through this, so we got high yield savings accounts. Hopefully, if you've been able to curate a little cushion or nest for yourself over the past several years, you've been able to take advantage of some of these high yield savings accounts over the past year and a half, I'd say, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you that high yield savings, they're going to go away. As the Fed cuts rates and rates come down, you're going to see what you think of today as 5 or 6% come down dramatically. I think you're probably going to see these balance out somewhere around where Fed funds is tied. Call it 2% lower than where they are today, around 3.5% at the highest.
Yeah.
And banks are going to say, okay, if I can make loans in this environment on homes at 6-7%, right?
Yep.
I need about a 2% spread to be profitable as an institution. So the highest I can offer is somewhere between 4 and 7%, and they're still going to build in some profitability. So 3.5 is probably where you're going to wind up.
Probably where you're going to wind up. So this is just a different type of savings account. It's not like a CD where your money's not stuck in there for a certain period of time, like 12, 13 months or so.
It's just
right?
like a normal account.
Just a normal account that offers a higher yield, like we just got into, right?
Oh,
the
look
return.
at you using the SAT
See what I did? I did a hit you with the left and come back with the right hook. All right. Next up on the list is a security. This is just a fancy term for an investment, right? Your stock, your bonds, your mutual funds, your indexes, right? It's just a security. And in the underwriting space, we call them marketable securities, right? So you just look at somebody's portfolio, and that's what it is.
It's a little more nuanced than that. I like to look at it as the actual word relates back to your childhood when you have the security of mommy and daddy, the comfort of mommy and daddy. It's something that has something behind it which gives you comfort.
Were you a mommy or were you a mama? Like, what did you call mom?
I still call her mama.
You still call her mama? It was always mama? It didn't like transition over the years?
No, I feel like saying mama harkens back to my childhood and it makes her feel young.
Yeah. What about you, Odin?
I do the Afghan way.
Mm.
So I call her mom, but in Farsi.
Like a endearing. I hear you say it. It's a very endearing way
Yeah.
of saying mom.
Can you say it in Farsi for me?
Madari.
Maudari. Yeah. Maudar means like mother. See, mother, maudar. And it's maudari.
No, I speak Farsi. Thank you very much for the clarification.
It's for the listeners, bro.
Oh, okay.
Bruv.
What about dad? What do you say? What do you call your dad?
Hey, yo.
Boba.
Boba.
Yeah, boba.
Yeah, Iranians say baba, but yeah.
For the longest time for me, so mine, it's funny. I don't even know how it happened, but both transitioned. So when I was really young, it was mommy, and then it turned into mom, and then yeah, I think mom just kind of stuck. But yeah, I was like, come on, man, I'm 18 years old. I can't be saying mommy. Like that's crazy.
Oh, come on, man.
What do you mean? You would come on, man. If you're still calling your mom mommy, that's rough. Mama, I get. Mama's still okay. It's still cute. It's endearing. It's
What if you're Puerto Rican?
It's respectful. Oh no,
You
that's
can't be like,
different.
hey, mommy.
No.
Hey. You know, you
Yeah.
can't, you know.
You have to find the exception to the rule.
I'm just saying, like, there's got to be like a, you know,
Yeah,
there's a cultural thing there,
there's
right?
definitely a cultural thing that you don't have any respect or appreciation for. We found that on the last episode.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Next up on the list are bonds. So if you were to make an investment in a company, you were to loan money to a company or even the government, and they pay you interest back in return, that is a bond. Correct?
Yeah, look at a bond a bit differently. It's a debt instrument. So if you're buying stock in a company, that is not a bond. If you're buying a company's debt, that is a bond.
Right. So if the government's looking to complete a project and they have different bonds, like different lengths in their terms.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Municipalities, government agencies, a lot of like firehouses are built with bonds. They'll issue debt. People will buy them. Institutions will buy them. They'll build it and they'll be repaid with tax dollars. And the tax dollars get paid ultimately to pay off this debt.
right. So going back to our previous example where I said you had a bond for $1,000, and let's say that bond was supposed to last 12 months, so a year. Okay. Here's some bonus terms for you that I didn't have on here. The $1,000, that's known as the principal. Okay. The $50 I said you get back, right? That's the interest. The way the bond works is you give a company $1,000 if that's what the agreed upon price, right? They pay you the $50, and at the very end, which is the date that they're supposed to give you back your initial $1,000, that date is called the maturity date. Okay, these are two bonus terms: principal and maturity date. These terms also get used around for loans too. It's not just for bonds. Why are you looking at me like that?
I was looking at you, that's all.
What are you doing?
Well, Arun, I thought
You're trying to.
you
That's
proud?
you're,
I was just proud of you. That's all. Why you got to take? You're so sensitive.
You did good, kid.
Yeah, you did great.
You did
That's
good,
fantastic.
kid. I feel like
Spectacular.
what was that kid's name in the Sandlot? The one that made it to the Dodgers. He was like that kid, and I was the kid that's just learning how to throw the ball.
Sensational. That's you. You're sensational.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, nothing?
You're sensational.
All right, stocks. I don't think this should be a surprise to anyone. This is when you buy a piece into a company the company doesn't necessarily need to be. You're a shareholder of a company.
You own a fraction or ownership share. Of
It doesn't need to be a publicly traded company, right? You can own it. You can be a shareholder of a company that's private, right? But typically speaking, when people are talking about this, they're publicly traded companies that you're buying into, and you own a piece of the company.
But be wary of things like common stock, preferred stock, Class A stock, Class B stock. All of these different classes of stock have different elements. What you want to target for the most part is stock that gives you voting rights. As a shareholder, as a traditional shareholder, you want to buy stock that gives you voting rights in a company. That is generally your highest valued stock because it is a more direct control ownership because you have a say in what happens.
Yeah.
Think of it this way. If you're in the United States and you're a citizen, you can vote. You're considered to have a benefit as somebody who's in the United States but is not a citizen and cannot vote.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing applies to stock. You want to be able to have a vote, however big or small it might be.
Right. Okay. So these next few on the list are ones that I actually get pinged on a lot, and people actually want full length like episodes on them. Okay.
Really?
We've talked about it. We've talked about this next one before, and there's different variations or different types of instruments, but this one in and of itself is called an index. Okay. This is just, think of it as a scorecard that tracks how a group of investments do. Okay. The most famous one that we routinely talk about on the show is the S&P 500, which basically tracks the 500 largest companies, and it tracks how well they are doing. Right?
Yeah, all right. I mean, I didn't know where you're going with that one, but okay, yeah, that's right. I would also say that indexes plus a margin are typically how a lot of loans and things are priced in business. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So and the reason why is people want to capture a space. Think of it as Said's index reference. They want to capture a niche. In this case, the S&P 500, right?
Mhm.
And they want to add a certain amount of additional return on it. It would not be uncommon for CMT as an index, or LIBOR used to be a great big index. 12 MAT is another
SOFR.
index. SOFR, another index. SOFR is probably the most commonplace one in the single family world right now. You can look up SOFR, SOFR, and you can see what it's constantly valued at. And a lot of banks will say SOFR plus 2%. That's the rate I'm going to give you on a loan at any given time. That's where they come up with that rate sheet that you see all these prices on. It's usually an index plus a margin. So this is what we mean when we talk about the stock market. The valuations you're seeing in the market are so intertwined with things like mortgage rates. And this is also why I tell people, if you think the Fed's going to cut the Fed funds rate, the cost of banks to borrow, and that's going to impact things like mortgage rates, you're completely disconnected that things like these indices, these indexes are tied plus a margin to mortgage rates. The 10-year Treasury, another one, right? 10-year Treasury plus 2%. That's a very common way to price things out. So just because Fed funds gets cut doesn't mean that the indices or the index moves. Index plus margin is how you get pricing in many of these cases. So it doesn't mean that you're going to see a drop in mortgage rate contemporaneous with Fed funds rate. And that's why knowing what an index is and how you're priced is important. If you know that SOFR is impactful for some mortgage rates, certainly some adjustable ones and ARM ones, you should know what that's at any given time. So a very common practice for me is every single day, I look at SOFR, I look at 12 MAT, I look at the 10-year Treasury, I look at the 2-year Treasury, and I look at the 30-day Treasury, 1-month Treasury.
Oh, really?
Oh, sorry, 3-month Treasury. Sorry.
Yeah.
I should probably keep that right, 3-month Treasury. And I look at those every single day, throughout the day, multiple times. The Treasuries I look at probably 4 times during the day, every day.
Mm-hmm. Because we want to, especially now during this time, which we talked about, we're constantly examining that inverted yield curve.
Yeah, and it's very simple. I have them on my iPhone, which is somewhere around here, and I literally look at my iPhone and I just go through the scroll and I scroll through the list. And what I also look for, and if you're not into the stock market and you're not really following a lot of this, and you want to get up to speed quickly, you don't have to cram for it. This is not the SAT. Okay, here's what you do. You go into your phone, and if you have an Apple product, it's even easier. But if you don't, I'm sure there's a similar app for like Samsung. And on my phone, on the front of it, I have at all times our stock displayed. But you can have an index displayed there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I were walking into, and I have a little widget, which also shows, in my case, I've got the New York Stock Exchange. We're traded on the New York Stock Exchange, so I want to know how the exchange is traded. I got the KBWR. That's going to show me what regional banks are doing.
Regional banks, right?
And then I've got our stock price below it. So I can kind of look and see what the market is doing in the New York Stock Exchange, which is where we're traded. I can look at the KBWR, what regional banks where we are traded in that community space is doing. And then I can look at what we're doing versus those other two places.
So you can compare how we're doing to what all regional banks are doing across the nation.
But let me give you a breakdown of what I have on my list that I watch. And you should put these on your list. And if you're in a sector If you're in, I don't know, fast food, you're in the restaurant sector, or you're in the tech sector, you can have whatever sector you want in there. But I have banking.
Mhm.
I have the New York Stock Exchange, I have the KBWR, I have R stock, I have the Dow Jones, I have the Nasdaq, I have the S&P 500. I've got similarly situated banking peers here, including Bank of America, J.P. Morgan Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo. But then I've also got like the 10-year and all the treasuries that I just listed before. I've got the stocks that I've invested in. Remember we talked about before that I like to invest in companies that I believe in. I've got Verizon, I've got Lulu, I've got a bunch of other companies that I've invested in here. Starbucks is here, Nike's here.
Mhm.
All the companies that I invest in, Disney, it's all here. So if I invest in you, I'm adding you to this list, and I just constantly track this throughout the day and see if what this also does. It tells my phone when you go into the stock trading app to bring up news relative to these companies
Right.
because I'm following them. So I see news that's relative to the companies that I follow. And that's a good way to get started. Even if you don't know what these numbers mean, if you don't know what these indexes are or what these companies represent, you just look at these every single day, take a couple of minutes, look at it, even if you're just scanning, and you will start to pick stuff up over time.
Yes.
You'll get it.
Exactly. So to take that now a step further, if you were to go into this stock app, right? One of the key metrics that a lot of people use to compare, like companies, is earnings per share. Okay. Now, different companies have different amounts of outstanding shares and different profitability.
Yep.
Right. So this is a metric that people will use to compare two different companies that are either further along. Some people are larger, bigger, but you can compare them because they actually use this metric to compare basically for exactly what it stands for. How much money is it making per share, right? So the profitability divided by the total outstanding shares.
Yeah, and I like EPS because in my mind, it's the best indicator of cash flow.
Okay.
I've always been a cash flow focused person. You kind of heard my shtick on this in the net worth conversation. Your net worth means very little. So in my mind, your market capitalization, which is another thing that you can track here to compare companies, it's a way to compare the size of a company. That's all well and good. But if your market cap is super high and your EPS is shit, and a great example of that was Tesla for the longest time. Tesla was now the largest automotive manufacturer in the world. They were, actually, I think they might be number 2 now, but whatever. They, for a long time, didn't have earnings. But they had this huge market cap because people were trading their stock price up. So this huge, massive market cap on the expectation that earnings were to come, but their earnings per share was garbage. It was actually negative for a while, right?
Wow.
They just weren't making it. So in my mind, EPS as a cash flow indicator is always something that takes priority over things like market cap. Market cap's important, but certainly EPS is there. Top 10 car companies in the world. Number 1, Tesla, $737.53 billion in market cap. Number 2, Toyota, $277.96 billion in market cap. Number 3, BYD. That's a Chinese manufacturer, $92 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
BYD is actually, I don't know if you've seen some of their cars.
I
Have you seen them?
No.
Oh my God. So BYD's cars, Arun, please pull these up. They are, and this is a Chinese manufacturer, and the tariffs to get them into the country are wildly expensive. So it doesn't make economic sense here.
Wow.
They have some fucking incredible features on some of their cars. I mean, they have taken luxury to a level that's just wild.
Really?
So I know you think, oh, Chinese manufacturer, oh, bootleg. No.
That's not what I
These
think.
cars are pretty badass.
Why are you taking shit on Chinese manufacturers, bro?
I just think a lot of people thought like knockoffs came from China or China didn't have their own ingenuity, but these cars are they have like a SUV. This is only showing one. It's interesting. They have an SUV EV.
This is the U.S.
Oh, okay.
That's why.
They have some spectacular features for their cars. I think this company is going to do some big things over time.
So I got an example for
Chinese,
everyone
not Japanese,
and why this metric is so important. I have 2 companies here for you. Okay, I have company A, Haroon's company, that generates, let's see here,
Body fat.
$2 million in profit a year. Okay, and I have company B, Chris's company, that generates $20 million.
Yeah, boy.
Well,
Yeah.
Oh, it died out.
What that up? I mic that up?
There you go. Yeah,
He
that
just
was better.
muted me.
He
Keep talking shit.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez, man.
Yeah, no, he's gonna do that.
So Chris's company that generates $20 million in profit. On its face, you're like, damn, Chris makes literally 10 times the amount of profit as Haroon. That company's doing way better on a EPS, right? No, actually it's not, because of the outstanding shares. So Haroon's company has 400,000 outstanding shares. So its EPS is $5, right? You take the profit, the $2 million, and you divide it by the total outstanding shares of 400,000, that gets you $5 EPS. Chris's company, $20 million in profit. You divide it by the outstanding shares of 5 million. That gets you an EPS of $4 a share.
Mhm.
Okay, so on a earnings per share, Odun's company provides better, more profitability overall as a
See, Haroon,
company.
you muted me and thought that we were being massively malicious, and in fact, we were actually going to compliment you. at the
I
end of
was
it.
giving you,
Saeed was
I
complimenting
was
me.
giving you the lob to dunk on him,
Dude,
bro.
in order to compliment you, I have to first break you down and make it seem a little bit dramatic. It's part of how you sell the authenticity of the show.
Yeah.
Well, but I was gonna put you on timeout.
So, and this is, but one
Thank you,
thing,
mommy.
one thing that everybody also, I think, a point that we need to make sure that if you're starting to look at these things and you're looking to dive into the world of investing, right? And you're starting to look at companies' EPS, these things can be manipulated a little bit.
Oh, a lot. But the SEC is supposed to regulate this. Unfortunately, it's not so easy.
One thing that we've always talked about on the show is pay attention to company buybacks.
Mm-hmm.
So if a company's EPS jumps and you see that they recently did a buyback, what did they ultimately do, right? They bought back some of the outstanding shares that are out there, decreasing the total amount of outstanding shares, which what does that do? It increases the EPS.
But here's what I'll say. That isn't, in my mind, manipulation on some level.
It's not, but it's kind of false. If everything
these
is still
things-
operating the same, right? The profit remained the same. It didn't grow a whole lot. Just the outstanding shares decreased.
Well, okay, so to your point, this is why a lot of people go over your next term here, price to equity ratio or PE ratio.
Price to earnings ratio.
Price to earnings ratio. Sorry. So your price is your stock price to your earnings, which is your EPS.
Mm-hmm.
So the price to EPS or price to earnings ratio, in this case, in some people's mind, makes a better indicator because of what you just noticed.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, a lot of people rely heavily on PE ratio. I am not a PE ratio focused person. I get why people like them. I take note of them. But that isn't going to drive entirely my investment decisions, because if I'm looking at EPS as a primary focus and I'm looking at the market cap, the PE ratio will somewhat be inferred based on what I'm looking at anyway.
Right. So if you're looking at the PE ratios, right? So you're kind of looking at all these things kind of together. You're looking at the EPS and you're comparing it to other like companies, and then you're going to go over and you're going to also look at the PE ratio and compare it to other like companies. What does the PE ratio basically tell you? What it basically tells you is the market thinking your stock right now at the price that it's at, it's cheap, or is it expensive? Is it too high?
Yeah.
Right? That's really what it's telling you. If it has a price to earnings ratio of 10, it's saying it might be a good buy for you, right? If it has a price to earnings ratio of 50, you're like, this is kind of expensive for the amount of profit that it's making.
Going back to Tesla at one point in time had a massive market cap, right? Their stock price was super high,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't have any earnings. So their price to earnings ratio was wildly high.
Right.
So that in that instance, you look at this and go like, why would I buy this? And people were buying it because they believed in the company moving forward. They believed in where it was going to go.
Right.
They believed so much in it that they said the earnings aren't there now, but they will be there. Believe it or not, this is where a lot of people who are speculative stock buyers will focus.
Mm-hmm.
They go, okay, what can I get into early that I think has this massive growth curve? Because that's what they feel like they can get the most amount of return. They're not looking at a 20, 30-year Coca-Cola, Pepsi-like play like the blue chips.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at what emerging technology, and I'll throw out a great one that everybody knows, buzzword, AI. What are they going to disrupt? That's why these disruptors and democratization were such big buzzwords, because that told people, okay, they're not going to have a huge buy price. Their market cap's going to start off low. They're going to have a really low or negative earnings. They're going to come off of venture capital or some type of, profitability focused drive. And then they're going to have a stock price, an IPO. It might pop a little bit. It might come back down, but I'll buy then, and hopefully it'll really pop off.
Mm-hmm.
And people look at stuff like Tesla as a buy opportunity. Another great example of this, Uber. When it came out, there was nobody who did Uber before. There was no rideshare services. How do you price this out? So it IPO'd and it came out, and people were like, you know what? This is going to make a shit ton of money. And to Dara's credit over there, he's done a fantastic job with Uber, and I think it's here to stay. From a technology standpoint.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's just about them optimizing and building their valuation over time. But people look at PE ratio as, okay, even though this is not an indicator in and of itself, if I believe in what they're doing and I believe it's really going to change things dynamically, I'm going to buy this thing.
Right.
I don't care what this number is.
This is definitely one of those metrics that you should get comfortable with and look into, because this is actually when you can start to nerd out and have fun with it. So if we go back to that example that I gave earlier of Chris's company that has an earnings per share of $4, what you take basically is, what is the stock price currently selling for? So if Chris's stock price of his company per share is going for $60 per share, okay? Pretty good. Not bad, guy.
Also hard, bro.
Also hard.
I'm out here.
You take that price per share and you divide it by that earnings per share number that we had, which we already figured out, which is $4, right? So you got 60, you divide it by 4. What does that get you? It gets you 15. Looks like it might not be a bad buy. It's actually kind of on the cheap. Maybe this company's actually going somewhere, right? So that's kind of what you use it for.
Anecdotally, the EPS is updated quarterly. You get these quarterly, and you typically get these released in the earnings calls or the earnings announcement that comes out the month after the quarter end.
Yeah, and you can go on Yahoo Finance and look up a company, and they do all the hard work for you. I remember reading, like, back in the day, Warren Buffett used to have to go, and he was memorizing all the shit for all the companies.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, you look at it so frequently. I do this a lot too. Is you'll go in. So analysts who cover the stocks will have certain sectors that they cover. Some will cover regional community banks. Some will cover technology, emerging technology. Some will cover transportation service. There's a whole lot of different subsets. But they'll cover stocks. They'll actually give you where they think the EPS is going to go. And then it's, did they meet? Did they exceed? Did they fail to meet their earnings numbers? Did they hit their targets? And that's where you see a lot of, like, the press come on, like CNBC, or people go, oh my God, this company didn't make their earnings expectation. They failed to make their expectations. They fell short. That's because the analysts who cover them expected them to do X, Y, or Z for profitability purposes or for earnings purposes, and they may not have gotten there.
Mm-hmm.
And if they fail to meet market expectations, the stock price falls.
Yeah.
This happens every single quarter as companies announce earnings. Either it's they beat expectations, stock price rises, excellent.
Right.
Sometimes it's mundane, they met them, nobody cares.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's cataclysmic.
Yeah. Before we get DM'd by some people, I want to make sure we clarify that I do understand that for earnings per share, it also, you have to factor in any dividends that get paid out, right?
Oh yeah, there's lots of nuances. Frankly, the PE ratio to earnings per share
there's nuances.
Lots of nuances. That's not important for most listeners of the show.
Yeah, we're just trying to teach basic financial literacy here. And the last one on the list that we're going to get into is called the beta, or as we like to call that, Chris. Yeah, can you let me get through my segment?
I'm alpha, bro.
You're beta, bro.
I'm alpha as shit.
Okay. Basically, what
does that make Haroon Kappa?
Kappa Gamma?
Kappa?
Kappa Gamma.
What's Kappa Gamma? Is that a fraternity or something?
Probably.
Has to be, right?
I don't know. Tri-delts?
Tri-delts?
ATP?
That's your fraternity?
Delta Moose?
The Delta?
Yeah,
Delta Gains?
You remember Revenge of
Gains?
Nerds?
Never saw that.
Stop it.
Bro.
You're not American.
What? Listen, you get on me for watching sports, and then you watch this.
You cannot watch Revenge of the Nerds, man. Like that's classic American culture.
Revenge of the Nerds?
Kappa Kappa Gamma. Okay.
Oh, it's a sorority.
It's a college sorority. That makes sense that you guys like it. That makes sense. Self-explanatory. Say less, beta boys.
Say less.
Say less.
So basically what this does, it just measures how much a stock price moves compared to the overall market, okay? So if a company has a beta that's at 1, let's just say, right? It's not too volatile. Anything above 1, it basically is a little bit more volatile, right? I actually looked up some right before the show. You got that Wayfair company that we were going to buy some new accent chairs from, right? I was like, man, we need some swivel chairs in here, But their beta was at 3.2, okay? So it looks like they're a little volatile. You never know what's going to go. If you got a recession looming around the corner, you never know what might happen.
Haroon, we are an hour and 3 minutes into Saeed's segment here.
Hold on, bro. Are you doing this?
You didn't stop to do an intro at any point. I can't do an intro now.
You literally told me, like, bro, I got one article today. I need you to carry the show.
We normally are knee deep into pop culture by now.
You're welcome. I'm not getting a thank you. Where's my thank you?
Haroon, do you feel violated?
Welcome to the show, everybody. Behind the ones and twos.
DJ Kappa Kappa Gamma.
If you're still listening to the show, whether that's on Apple or Spotify, please head over, leave us an honest 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. If you're watching us over on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell, hit that like button. Let's get this video out to as many people as possible. Do all the moist, goody good stuff.
Do we do the intro now?
No, we say bye.
You know what? I want a shirt. You know what? I realized we need a shirt that says "Noise."
Yeah, I figured you were going to ask that at some point in time. I refuse to do it.
Come on, bro. You use it too. I use it.
I would have to say goody good or something like that on it.
That noise, goody good stuff.
No noise.
That's
No.
a new thing.
Your wife would kill me.
It's fine.
Revenge of the Nerds, classic, iconic American cinema. Except, unfortunately, today, these guys would all be cool. So
It's true though.
Yeah, the times have changed a lot. Like all the guys, the jocks would be the best movie that covered this.
21 Jump Street.
God damn it, so good.
So good.
Yeah,
It's so true too.
so true.
Like, yeah, the jocks no longer cool. Like,
Yeah.
the nerds are cool. Yeah,
Very true.
I agree.
Was it 22 Jump Street? That was that one.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I remember which one. Which one it
22 Jump
was.
Street. Yeah, the second one.
Yeah, I remember. It was after I saw that movie, or maybe it just stuck with me. I was in the car ride. I used to have long car rides with Adam on the way to school, because we were living in Riverside, and I was dropping him off at a Montessori in Anaheim Hills, and he I don't know how this came about, but he asked me like, "Dad, what makes people cool?" And I was like, "Damn, like I wasn't ready for this question."
Is that money?
Yeah, that green paper, son.
Is there American Express card black?
Exactly. And I was like, man, I wasn't ready for this. The first thing that came to my mind was like, I'm playing chess with his mind, at all times. I was like, it's the people that never stop asking questions, son. That's what makes you cool. So now when he asks questions like, Adam, can you just constantly? He's like, Dad, you said it's cool. I'm like, fuck, you're right. It is cool. Shit. Sometimes he asks me questions and I'm stuck. I'm like, son, you gotta learn how to use Google.
Wow, not only did you dominate the show today, but now we're going back into the world's greatest dad routine. Haroon, please help me. Jesus.
Nothing about that said I'm the world's greatest dad. I'm sharing an experience.
You were driving 30 minutes away from your home to drop off your kid at a upper level Montessori.
Bro, this was back in like
And talking to him. I barely talked to my son.
Chris, what article you got today?
I got nothing.
You don't want to get into it?
No, it's
You're not trying to get flagged?
We should probably explain ourselves. If you're listening this far in the show and you're a true fan, we love you. We appreciate you. But there wasn't a lot of financial information, obviously, in the last week or so. There was a lot of focus on political events, and obviously President Biden has now dropped out of the race officially, which was, frankly, one of the most telegraphed dropouts in American history. We'll skip the semantics and the conspiracy theory around a lot of this stuff and just say that a lot of this is going to affect the economy because the rhetoric can spin on one way or the other. And traditionally speaking, Republicans are seen as regulation light, and Democrats are seen as regulation heavy. And depending on which camp you're in which no judgment one way or the other, the candidates for each will be looked at as good or bad for the economy with that opus or that lens. So we will see more and more of that in the coming weeks leading up to the November 5th election, which will kind of mute or skew a lot of the economic reporting that we're seeing. I would encourage everybody who's listening to the show to not be distracted by it, to stay focused on the financial fundamentals that we've taught you, to stay focused on looking at the information that you're seeing, and to really pause when you see mainstream media telling you what may or may not happen if a person gets elected. Keep in mind the way this is supposed to work. I know it is political, but the way this is supposed to work is that the financial system is supposed to operate independently, the FOMC chiefly among those systems. So, yes, I understand there'll be ramifications financially based on what president may or may not be elected. Try to stay neutral of that nonsense and try to stay focused on the math.
It's supposed to be independent, and your boy DT came out and it was like, I'll probably let Jerome finish out his term. It's like, damn, bro, why you already calling for his job? It's crazy.
I have no comment on the matter. This is not a political show.
It's
Haroon,
not.
Did you want to get into pop culture at all tonight?
No, same thing, dude. There's so much politics going on. There wasn't a lot of news.
There's no pop culture going on?
No, I mean, there's a few things. One, Olympics. Here, I'll pull it up.
USA
You see the
team?
cardboard beds in the Olympics?
What is this?
No, I did not.
So when you walk in now as an Olympian, they do a body scan, your front and your side, and then they determine what mattress style will be best for you. And they have like these almost like foam like pads so all this is recyclable the actual bed frame is on cardboard, and it's made to be ventilated from the bottom, so there's holes in the bottom of it, and athletes are jumping on them to show you how stable they are. But it's an interesting concept for a bed, and they have 1, 2, or 3 as far as stiffness of the bed goes. It's really interesting.
Interesting.
So the whole thing is that the entire thing will be recycled or recyclable afterward. There you go. Here's a picture of it, Haroon. Yeah, those are the cardboard beds right there, and they all have like their custom Paris 2024 cover.
Bro, by the way, I got more information on that wedding in India. Dude.
And Bonnie?
Yeah.
Tell us.
Dude, so
You regret some of your comments now, don't you?
apparently it was like the most gangster event of all time.
Yeah, you were talking all sorts of shit on his
It's
outfit.
like the best. It was apparently these two have been in love for like ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
And look,
They've been in a long.
She's a pretty girl.
He's
I mean-
also a billionaire.
Yeah, a billionaire.
No,
yeah.
but they've been in love since they were like kids. Like I think they're like, I don't want to call it high school sweethearts,
No,
but
she comes from a fellow wealthy family.
yeah, but they've been in a relationship for a long. This wasn't arranged.
Here's how this conversation went. Hey, yo, billionaire. I'm a billionaire. You're a billionaire, right? Yeah, okay, cool. You got a daughter, right?
No,
I got a son, right?
No,
We're going to make this happen, so we're going to stay rich, right?
Apparently,
Right? We're going to be rich, right?
we gonna keep the rich, right?
Yeah, we go. It's a class thing. It's India, bro.
I know.
System
Yeah,
there.
there's a class system for sure. But so all the guests that went, so they paid for flights and hotel for all their guests too.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, right. And they had different floors. So was that some like huge convention center, right? They had different floors. The floors where all the food was at, it was literally restaurants from different countries that they liked eating at. They flew the people from the restaurant that knew how to make the food that they like in there. So actual people from Italy at this venue making their food. Actual people from New York flown in to make this food. Actual people from across the world. I'm just like, what the fuck, man?
I don't know why this surprised dude. You were talking so much shit, and Haroon and I were
don't
blown
know.
away.
I didn't understand the level of baller, bro. Like,
Bro,
Didn't you talk-
$7,000 invitations.
no, I mean
Yeah.
that part I got. Whatever. Okay, you put like you bedazzled it with real diamonds or something. Okay, that's fine. But like the level,
His dad is the richest person in Asia,
the
9th richest person in the world.
the thought that went into this thing is
Yeah,
crazy.
dude, this is months long. And the fact of the matter is like you were talking all. You're like, oh, this guy.
No,
This
you
is
know
the
what this
outfit
was?
you went with.
No, you know what this was? This was like a flex on any royal wedding that ever held. It's like, let me show you. Let me show you what a real flex is. That's what this was.
You know what?
They wanted to go above and beyond to show, okay, you guys want to flex weddings? Let me show you how to flex a wedding.
I don't know what you want me to say. This is all what I expected. Arun and I are not racist like you.
Apparently,
we expected this.
apparently, all the music that was played was like live band, the actual band.
Yeah, fucking Rihanna, bro.
Yeah, no, there was no speaker. There was
Yeah.
no speakers anywhere. It was the live bands.
Yeah.
Just insane.
You're a terrible human being.
I'm not terrible. I look. I walked it back, and I'm giving them props.
I don't know. That's enough.
I'm willing to accept an invitation.
We got to put you in some kind of rehab program for your racism, bro. You were talking all shits on the sorry.
No, it was the look he gave in the. It was a bad photo,
Wait,
bro.
men don't wear saris, right? That's a female thing.
You don't even know,
What-
bro.
what is a man
What's it?
outfit
Come
called?
on, you're not cultural, bro.
I don't understand. I don't know what the men wedding attire is called.
Hit on Tumban. That's what it's called, bro.
Don't you cuss to me. I will slap that smirk off your face.
That's what it's called. Yeah, man.
Yeah, well, all right, Arun, stop. You're getting off on this whole Indian
Yeah, yeah.
wedding thing. You're stop.
Yeah, or literally.
Yeah, between this and Bollywood films, I mean, you pretty much made his week.
Yeah, exactly.
Or let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If they played an hour-long Netflix special dedicated to this wedding, how fast would you watch that?
Oh, bro, it's going on his wish list like ASAP.
Right?
It has to, yeah.
You see that news that came out this week that that Netflix gets more streams in one day than Apple gets all month?
That's so crazy, man.
Dang.
And they've spent how much money into Apple TV?
A lot of money.
Yeah, all those TV series. Like, what are they
A
gonna?
whole lot of
you think
money.
they're just gonna scrap it? I think what they need is a financial literacy show.
You guys are already losing money.
Yeah.
So if you pay us more money,
Let me teach
at
you.
least we can teach you why losing money is bad.
Yeah, exactly.
The Higher Standard Podcast, brought to you by Apple. They lose money, but we tell them why.
That's what they need, bro. We gotta look. Aim for the stars, land on the clouds, baby.
Well, feel free to reach out. You're the guy trying to get sponsorships. Between that and Sizzler, I'm sure you're gonna hit a home run.
Bro, you ever see those? You ever see those people, bro, that are like that constantly just repost this? This is the shit that bothers me about social media. Can I be honest? And I need you to be 100% honest here. Okay. I get sometimes people are like maybe going through stuff and they need like the motivational posts.
All right.
Okay, I get it. There's a space for that.
Okay.
But when like I've seen this now for months on end, and all you're doing is like all the posts on your stories is like motivational thing after motivational thing after motivational thing after. I'm just like, God, man,
No,
just
no, no. Hear me out.
I have to mute the story. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm out.
Hear me out.
I don't want to know anything. I don't want to know anything about your life anymore.
I know. But hear me out. Okay, look. I used to be like you, and then I grew up. But I used to be like you, okay? And I used to think the same thing you do. Except I've now come to a point in my life where I realize people who feel the need to continually post this are going through some shit.
Yeah, I get it. I said I get it.
So there was a girl we were close to, my wife and I, and she's a wonderful her and her husband split up, and they had a young son, and she, like my wife, got really into like healing and crystals, and I'm like, man, I ain't got time for this woo woo shit. Like I was
the whoop-de-whoop.
I never muted her, but I was just like,
You didn't mute her. Stop it.
no, I swear to God, on my mom, I never muted her.
Can people find out if you mute them? I don't know this shit.
No, but I know because I look at who looks at my stories, and if I don't see your name ever pop in my stories, you're a piece of shit. And I'm gonna tell you right now,
What
bro.
if I'm busy?
You're
What if
never
I'm
that
busy?
busy, dog. I've seen the shit that you look at. You send me posts. Like I know what you look at. But here's what I'll say is, and they'll post this stuff and like all sorts of shit about like light and energy and like then the motivational quotes come out, and then they're like, oh, I see these numbers like 333-777-444 means something, and I'm like, it means y'all got too much time on your hands. That's what that means.
Yeah. Look, oh gosh.
But
man.
here's what I look at it now. These people are going through some shit, okay? And they're trying to telegraph to the world that they're going through some shit.
Yeah.
I would rather be the guy who just pings them and says, how you doing? Don't be that guy.
That's a lie. That's
true.
You don't do that.
I'm going to judge the fuck out of you.
You don't do that.
Huh?
You don't do that.
No, I do.
No, you
I
don't.
do. I will literally say, hey, how you doing? Just checking in.
Just okay. Hey Chris, can I get some of your time? I really need to talk to somebody.
That's never happened, to be honest with you.
They know you're not that guy, bro.
They usually go, yeah, I'm not that guy. But the fact of the matter is I think that's why. I think people post that stuff because they want that type of attention. They want to know that someone cares.
Yeah.
You obviously don't. I get that.
No, that's not it. Because here's the thing. It's one thing if you're going, you know the backstory, but if you know, like, okay, they're on the up and up and everything's fine, but this is just the content they like to consume, there are those people too.
Well, then I would ask you why you're following that person in the first place if that's not your friend. If it's your friend, you should care. If it's not your friend, and they're just posting that content, why you
it's
following
an acquaintance. And they reached out to me.
Let's
I'm not
name names. No one's going to hear the name. Who is it?
No.
Come on, who is it?
I can't even name. Like,
Haroon, you know who this is, right?
No,
No
he has
idea.
he has no idea. I haven't. I'll show you. I'll show you after.
Be
the show.
open-minded, dude. Like, why are you
I
so
am
negative?
open-minded. I understand, but it's just like for me, it's like I can't. Like it's too much. It's too much.
Oh, did I tell you Shahab from Symbiotica sending me one of their like
Care packages.
yeah.
That's what I mean. That's cool for the show. I mean, just you, huh?
Well, it's because I bought his products and I've been buying them and I've been posting them and stuff like that. And he was like, "Oh, thank you, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Don't give me." I didn't want. I told him not to. I'm like, "Look, I'd rather pay retail. That's what friends do. Friends pay retail for friends' businesses, and you guys have a great product, and I support the shit out of you guys. Symbiotica makes some amazing stuff.
Yeah, they do.
I've been doing a lot of their liposomal vitamin C. I did some of the mushroom stuff they had the other day. Basically, they all come in these little. There's a lot of their stuff that comes in gel packs,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just take it with you, put it in your bag, and I'll take them throughout the day.
Okay.
They have like a little quick greens one that was pretty good. I had a vanilla chai.
I feel like I'm seeing them around a lot.
Because they're popping off. But so he took the liberty of finding our address online and literally sending it on his own accord and was like, "Fuck you, I got your
Wow.
address. I don't need your approval."
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah, it's really cool. So,
You'd ever want to come on and do the show?
I told him he's got an open invite. He wants to come, but he lives in San Diego now, and we trying to work it out.
We got to do this thing. The All the Smoke podcast.
Yeah, what about it?
So they do this thing at the end of the show that I love.
Oh, they refer to the next person's guest.
I love that. It's so to me that's so cool. You don't like that idea?
I know you like it because it makes finding the next guest easier.
No, it's not that, but it's usually they're like, oh, I know who would be perfect for you guys in your show. It's all usually I feel like it would be a genuine referral.
Maybe, but Rogan doesn't do that.
Damn.
Dog, you're
Yawning?
not Rogan, dog.
Bro, I have had like zero sleep the last couple nights, man. And I got to be up tomorrow at like 5, maybe 4:30ish. Be in the office by like 6:30. Practice my earnings call script.
Earnings. Let's see what I did there.
Earnings call script. Yeah.
All right.
It's an interesting thing when you read a script telling people how you performed based on a release and an investor deck. And then you get questions from the analyst whose job it is to model out, obviously, what it is that you're doing. There's like a lot of tradition and just consistency built into this process, but I would change so much about it.
So you feel like the people that are listening to that call would prefer a scripted version over you just going off the top of your head?
Okay. I don't think people listen to the call because we're providing information that's eloquent and sexy.
Okay.
Okay. And you have to understand too, like I have the SEC, the FDIC,
Come on, you're
the
good enough.
FRB.
You got it, man. It's okay.
I have auditors, accountants. There's limitations on what you can say. So after we draft this, it has to go to legal. It has to go to accounting. It has to go to, there's several layers of people who have to proofread this. They have to, the numbers have to be verified. Like I can't go off script.
Why not?
Because you would risk audit events. You would risk SEC violations. I mean, there's some legitimate concerns. And even when you answer questions, you can't make forward-looking statements.
Yeah.
You know, there's limitations on how you answer these questions and how you frame them. So you need to be on script just to ensure that you know what you're going to say and what you can't say. And then when you go off script because you're answering questions at that point in time, it can be very difficult to answer in a meaningful way because a lot of times people ask you questions they either don't know leads to an answer you can't tell them, or they do know and they just want to get you to give some information.
Get you in that aha moment.
Yeah, and that happens sometimes. Not maliciously,
But
but
then
just,
you developed relationships with these people over the years. Not I mean in the sense of where you know them and
some of you do. Yeah, some of
that
you know.
professional relationship, right?
Yeah, some you absolutely do. Some of them I will actually call and be like, "Look, I want your thoughts on what I should say during this call."
Oh wow.
Yeah, couple
Because
guys.
they understand what's going on in the company because they're also reading all the financials too.
Yeah, they're deep in it. And keep in mind too, like their perspective is they listen to all these other earnings calls. They listen to all these other banks that are in space that are similarly situated. They've been doing this for decades, right? I want to hear your opinion of what you want to hear. I want to know what would knock your socks off. I want to know what'll help you do your job easier. The more I make your job easier, the more you're like, oh, these guys actually care about what I want to hear, and they're gonna try to communicate it to me.
Yeah.
So I try to feed the ecosystem to the extent that I can, in that it's really important that Wall Street gets what they need from a call, because the last thing you want to do is provide an ineffective earnings call where you don't give these people what they need and they can't really do a good job of telling the street whether you're a good buy or not.
So then when you deal with instances like that, right? Does it make you look at situations with like professional athletes differently when they're getting questioned and grilled and there's no respect or relationship built and they're constantly being put under this microscope?
No, because they sell off sensationalism. The people who interview them do, and they don't have regulation as to what they say and can't say.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say a lot of times athletes typically aren't reporting on anything that I would say is unique or sensational other than their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You're asking an athlete, like, what did you think about the game tonight? What did you, this one opportunity happened? And they'll give you their insight, which is fine. I mean, it's valuable. But at the same time, like, there's not a market reaction based on this.
Right.
Right? This is the fans getting some interaction FaceTime. There's less focus on it. And if
It's
you
not
say
like the value of the team goes up or down.
right.
Right.
And sometimes even the bad press will still give you coverage, and you'll still benefit the team overall, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could do some wild shit that makes the news, and then everyone's like talking about the Mavericks, but at the same time, it's not because it's a good thing or bad thing, but yet the Mavericks are all over the news.
Yeah, but it could be a situation where, like, you know, someone's up for a new contract and they ask them a point blank question like, "Are you coming back next year?" I'd like to fill out the rest of this contract first before I make this decision. And then people are like, "Oh, what's going on with the team now?"
Yeah, but I also have a thing about this. I think in life, so many problems we have as a society come from a lack of communication. And I know that sounds like a generalized blanket statement, but I'll put it to you this way. Everything we do as humans, in my mind, is unique because of the way we communicate. Did you know that monkeys, for example, can imitate animals?
Okay.
But neighboring tribes of monkeys will then learn to imitate like animals or sounds that they know equate to like a dangerous predator. to scare off the other monkeys out of an ecosystem so they can get their food.
Oh yeah,
Right? It's communication.
manipulation. Yeah.
We as humans have evolved in such a way that communication is now changed. Back in the 50s and 60s, mainstream media was a communication method, and everybody, there was no questioning of the rhetoric. We believed the government was doing the best thing for us, and you unilaterally believe the media.
Everyone bought into the system.
There was no checks and balances. And
Yeah.
now with the podcast space, everybody questions everything to the point where it's so stigmatized and charged. I mean, look at the Trump assassination attempt, right? And I don't mean to get us, flagged, but what I will say is there people who said that his ear didn't get shot. If his ear did get shot and it got that close to his ear, that there would have been some hearing loss, would have been some damage there, that there would have been a lot more that you saw. Some people said that they saw him out the next day without a bandage. And I don't know what to believe because there's so many opinions out there in the ether.
Yeah, but somebody did die, so that's like,
No, I hear you. I'm not saying that there wasn't real. I'm just saying these are the opinions that are out there.
He was a firefighter too, right?
I don't know. I didn't follow it up. I really try to stay away from the news on the surrounding facts because I knew it was going to evolve.
Yeah.
Like I look at something like, what's a great example of this? JFK. He was shot in what, the 60s?
Yeah.
And yet those files are all still classified. Why? What could have been so sensational that every president since then till now has chosen not to declassify that?
I think we know. I think we know.
Have either of you guys watched Oppenheimer?
Yes, fantastic movie.
Yeah, I just watched that, I think, last weekend.
Yeah. What'd you think?
First time. It was really good. Very, very good.
Did you know that
Great
Matt
score.
Damon's character, the guy who played Matt Damon's character, he actually went in front of Congress at one point in time and literally told Congress that radiation exposure, this is after the bombs were dropped, radiation exposure was a painless way to die. Yeah.
Wow.
He basically suggested, he was like, oh, it's a very pleasant, he said it was a pleasant way to die. That's what he said.
Whoa.
And that's how wild back then you couldn't fact check, right? You know what's crazy to me, and I will end the show on this, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I went down the rabbit hole in AI a while back, and I found this crazy. So there are phones now where if I have my ear pods in, I think Samsung does this. If I have my AirPods in or my earpieces in, you can literally speak to me in Spanish, and it'll translate in real time in English.
How cool.
And I can speak back to you in English, and it'll translate in real time to you in Spanish. And I don't know how good the technology is, but I've seen it work, and I've seen the videos and everything else, and I kind of went down this rabbit hole, and I thought to myself, like, oh, my God. Like, this is going to change. At some point, you're going to have, like, Neuralink where it's attached to your brain.
Mm-hmm.
But just this in and of itself has ramifications that people don't understand. And let me explain to you why. If it is fast enough and technologically good enough to translate in real time from one language to another,
Yeah.
the next leap forward is it for it to be able to fact check you while you're speaking to me
Yeah. Not true. Yeah, exactly.
and give you probabilities of accuracy and transcribe the entire thing and take notes of the dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
So now me walking around, I have a conversation with Saied. Saied has a conversation with me. There's no question about what I said. It's like text messages now, right? We can speak no matter where you came up with this in a language that we both appreciate. Now, there's obviously some nuance to words and everything else, but for the most part, we can speak to one another. You can travel all over the world now and speak to anybody you want, and you can tell if they're lying to you. Now, you combine that with devices with cameras that you constantly have on you. How much of your life will be filmed at all times?
No, I know.
Now you're talking about instant recalling stuff. It is going to become increasingly impossible to lie. Think that through. Somebody goes on national television that says X, Y, and Z happened. And you could in real time hear your devices say that is an inaccurate representation of what transpired. Here's a video of it. It's going to become almost impossible.
Don't lie.
Well, lying is just one. But imagine go listen to an earnings call and someone gives you a breakdown of their earnings and they go, that's misrepresentation, that's inaccurate. The math here is wrong. This is what the math. I mean, you could all in real time.
Have you watched Black Mirror, that one episode where you record?
I've always wanted to watch that. I never got a chance to watch it.
Oh, what was that episode about?
There's one episode in there that it's exactly what Chris is saying. It records your day. So at the end of the day, the guy is like rewinding and like rewatching certain like interviews that he did. He's like, how could I have done things differently? And then he like starts rewinding back into his past and he starts looking at like what his wife was doing. And like, he's like, was I overreading the situation? So it's, yeah.
Bro, you guys have cameras in your house?
Yeah, around the house,
The ring, yeah.
I have 5
inside the house.
in my house and one at the front door. There's no point to get in and out of my house. There's one in the garage as well. You can't get in and out of my house without you being on camera. There's just no way.
Yeah.
Right? And there's several cameras in the house, including the bedrooms, including there's cameras everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting and there's on my car, there's 11 cameras. On my car.
Yeah.
11.
That's insane.
It's insane.
I have a question for you, Chris. Based on the translation conversation you just talked about AI, right?
Yeah.
Do you think AI is making people more stupid?
No, I think there's a misconception that the laziness will make people stupid, or the lack of work will make us stupid. Somebody smarter than me once made a quote that I think is important, that AI won't take your job. Somebody who knows how to use AI better than you will take your job.
I said that too. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I said somebody smart. Yeah. Wow.
But then, I was
took that right out.
I was quoting the CEO of NVIDIA.
Okay, so somebody smarter than me, just not you.
No, it was me. I said it to you though.
But I do think AI is going to change a whole hell of a lot, and I've been spending a lot of time focusing on it, not because I'm like, ooh, AI, come buy my company, stock, AI. No, I'm not that guy, but I do want to understand the ramifications. So I think being a lawyer is going to change dynamically.
Yeah.
In the years to come, I don't think you're really going to need an attorney for a lot of things.
But to Orun's point, I was listening to an episode. God, forgive me, I forget the name of his podcast. His name is Max
Lundgren.
Yeah, him, right? He's got a good connection with the guys over there at Mind Pump. And he's actually he was on Rogan, so I've been checking out his stuff, and he actually specializes in, a lot of the brain activity, cognitive benefits of things, and really like Alzheimer's and dementia, right? And he's been having some specialists on, and I was like kind of interested and fascinated by it. And he said, aside from like just being active and healthy, one of the things that keeps, that can delay the onset of some of these things is, how much are you doing cognitively later in life, right?
Yeah.
So to Orun's point, if you're using AI for everything, right? I think of it like, remember back in the day, you used to know how to get everywhere. You no longer have to really memorize directions.
I disagree with this. I've heard this take before. I disagree.
But you're taking it from most people. As you continue to get older, aren't going to continue to be as inquisitive.
Okay, so here's my problem with this. This is a very short-term mentality. When you look back longer in society, you used to think that a tablet in front of a kid was going to make a kid stupid.
Okay.
Or you go, oh my God, they're not going to have an attention span. And
you can't deny the numbers of how much Alzheimer's and dementia is going up.
Yeah, but I think that has more to do with dietary processed foods than it does.
It could.
You're confusing correlation with causation.
But but a lot of them have said that it's how much are you doing mentally,
I get that, but keep in mind too that just because we're not doing the same remedial tasks that we were doing mentally doesn't mean they're not going to be doing other tasks mentally.
Yeah, you should be, right? Yeah, exactly.
So it's not that you can't think that just because it eliminates a job doesn't mean that humans aren't going to replace with a different job. Yes, we are vastly approaching an inflection point where humans and technology integrate in such a way that we create something new. And obviously when AI becomes sentient, and general AI is a real thing, you're going to wind up having a problem where this thing can perform better than humans can.
Mm-hmm.
And for a narrow window of time, that will lead to a better humanity. And then it's going to create all sorts of fucking problems. There's a sentient AI that has its own thoughts. And this has already happened on multiple occasions, by the way. As a sentient AI that has its own thoughts, does that deserve the right to live?
Mm.
How far does that expand?
The right to live is crazy.
If it can think, we think of life as consciousness in the concept of something we don't fully understand.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it this way. We know enough about human life to where there's still questions about the outcome. There's enough questions to keep you motivated.
Yeah.
And not enough questions to keep you at the same point. So you don't know what death is like. You don't really know the purpose of life, so you lead life. But if you knew that if you died tomorrow there was an afterlife, you know people would just fucking kill themselves?
Yeah, just wanting.
If you knew you became part of like a conscious that was beyond this, more people would kill themselves and say, if this is fucking temporary,
yeah,
and I go on to like the next life, just fucking kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you don't know for sure that there's an afterlife, but if you did, this might be an outcome. People would just go like, this is temporary. I'm going to move on to the next life. I'm not a billionaire here. I'm going to move on. Right?
That's crazy.
But at the same time, if there's nothingness, then you try to maximize the most of your life here. And the fact is we know just enough about nothingness and there possibly being an afterlife to where everybody behaves. Everybody.
I mean, I don't know about everybody, but
Well, I mean, most people
on our side of the world,
they don't kill themselves, right?
yeah,
And they don't act wildly badly. There's always a subset of both.
yeah,
Right? But the majority of humanity is in the middle.
yeah.
Because those two guardrails are up.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah,
That's weird, right?
everyone just buying into the system and playing along.
Because you don't know, but you know enough to know you can't waste it.
Mm.
Because you don't know.
Right.
That's a wild concept to me. You know how infinitely small human life is relative to like the world?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Stars are billions of light years away. A single year, billions of years of time travel away.
Yeah.
You couldn't even get off the ground to get there in a one human life.
Yeah, exactly.
We are a small part of the world, brother.
Yeah, man.
And you want to end the show so badly. You disagree with everything I say.
No, I don't. I can, you know, the worst part about this whole show is I pulled the curtain too far this way. I don't even know how far along.
An hour and 35 minutes.
There you go.
We haven't even done an introduction yet. We should do the intro now and do the rest of the show.
Yeah. Oh, now that's a gimmick that you want to start doing?
It's not a gimmick. I really want to do that.
How you do it?
Welcome, everybody, to the Higher Standard Podcast. I can't do
I
it.
can't do it.
Arun, I'm going to save you some editing time. We're going to end it here.
Yeah. You
Thank you.
save you
You're
some
welcome.
anytime. You got anything, Odin?
Nope.
Got anything, sir?
Nope. I am tapped.
All right. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. Hugs and
That was
kisses.
genuine.
I know it was. I was supposed to thank you.
Yeah, you can feel it.
In my bones.
Deep.
Deep
Your
in my
loins.
bones.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.